not supporting the person, though.
No, but when you support that person,
Right, but
it brings... Go ahead.
And that was installed at Pete Hegseth's request so he could use the Signal app on his personal computer. So why is this important? Well, a commercial internet line does not have the firewall protections that the Department of Defense's...
You got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug.
There were a series of serious leaks, and so we looked for leakers. The leakers know who they are. When we had leaks, leak investigation. Leak investigation. Leaking, leaking, leaker. Leaking, leaks, leaking, leaks, leaking, leakers. Once a leaker...
I'm telling people to prepare, Whoopi. I'm telling people to prepare.
They are. Donald Trump's reaction to Whoopi Goldberg's live takedown may just be his most over-the-top yet. All it took was one shocking question about Barack Obama's birthplace, and the room went silent. Why didn't Trump have an answer? And what does it reveal about his long-standing narrative? Get ready for a moment he probably wants you to forget. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Whoopi Goldberg isn't afraid of asking tough questions, but what she pulled during a live segment of The View was a masterclass in shutting someone down. Trump, who usually relishes playing the loudest voice in the room, found himself unusually quiet after Whoopi's question landed like a grenade. It was as if the studio air had been sucked out, leaving nothing but the weight of her words hanging. Whoopi asked something so simple and yet so cutting. Why did he spend years questioning Barack Obama's birthplace? Right then, you could hear people hold their breath. Trump's usual smirk of confidence, gone, at least for a moment. The birther controversy is old news at this point, but it still stings because of what it was really about, questioning the legitimacy of America's first black president. Trump, back before he was a politician with rally crowds chanting his name, was a guy making late-night headlines by claiming that Obama might not have been born in the USA.
We're learning that Hegseth used the Signal app on a personal computer in his office that was connected to the internet on an unsecured commercial line. What you mentioned is called a dirty line.
Was her usual polite self, as she was with every guest. But did I look...
From the beginning, too. It was, you texted the exact time and place the secret bombing would begin before the secret bombing happened to your wife on an easily hackable phone. And his defense for this is, who told you?
And with all the issues Americans are going to be voting on, you know where they started the interview? Take a look.
He never had proof, but that was the whole point. It wasn't about facts. It was about planting doubt where there wasn't any, creating a cloud of suspicion that played on old prejudices. And Whoopi wasn't gonna let that slide, not after years of Trump shrugging it off as if it hadn't been deeply damaging. What made this moment so uncomfortable for Trump wasn't just the question itself, it's that it came from someone like Whoopi, someone with the cultural weight to cut through his bravado. She didn't lead in with a joke or soften her tone to make him comfortable. Whoopi's delivery was as direct as a freight train, and for someone like Trump, who thrives on controlling the energy of a room, that's dangerous territory. It wasn't just about birtherism either. By putting him on the spot, she exposed one of Trump's oldest tricks, using baseless accusations to undermine people who threaten his image. Whether it's questioning someone's birthplace or floating conspiracy theories about his opponents, the playbook hasn't changed much. When Trump didn't immediately respond, it created one of those rare TV moments that feels tangible even through the screen. The audience didn't gasp or boo. They didn't need to. The silence said it all. No cheering, no snapping of fingers. All you could hear was the shuffling of chairs, and maybe a few whispered, "Did she really just ask him that?" Trump, who usually has a one-liner or an insult ready to deflect any criticism, looked momentarily stunned. He eventually muttered something about just wanting to know the truth or another excuse along those lines, but it was too late. He'd already lost the room. What was so powerful about Whoopi's approach is that she didn't need elaborate arguments or stats to make her point. The question itself was the weapon, and it wasn't even a question for Trump alone. It was a question for everyone watching. For years, the birtherism claims were brushed off as just politics. But Whoopi's boldness forced people to reflect on what those claims really represented. How does questioning a president's birthplace affect how a nation sees itself? How does it reflect broader issues of racism and identity?
Former employees. And then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not gonna work with me.
It's hard to talk to people who support people who think you don't matter in the country.
But it's not.
And here they are. They're amazing. Take a look. It's pretty sick stuff right here.
What was shared over Signal, then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations.
Got through, I did it, like I do now. But here's where they really messed up.
Just 10 minutes ago, I was looking at actual war plans of things that were ongoing or pending things to happen.
These weren't just rhetorical points, they were challenges posed live on national television, with Trump as their unwilling avatar. This wasn't the first time Trump had fielded criticism about birtherism, but it hit differently because it put him on defense in a way he's not used to. In most scenarios, Trump dictates the terms of the conversation. He improvises, redirects, and often overwhelms opponents with sheer noise. But here, with Whoopi's question hanging in the air like an accusation waiting for a confession, there was nothing to redirect. He couldn't simply out-talk her, and the audience wasn't buying his "it wasn't a big deal" routine. You could feel the weight of the moment, not just for the people in the room, but for what it signified. When powerful figures are challenged and made to squirm, it's a reflection of the larger systems they represent. The backlash to Obama's presidency wasn't just about policy, just like birtherism wasn't just a silly conspiracy. It was a symbolic rejection of change, of progress, of what America claimed to be striving toward. And with her piercing question, Whoopi took all of that context and boiled it into one moment, one man, one uncomfortable silence. The fact that this exchange even happened on The View, a daytime talk show often dismissed by critics as light entertainment, made it all the more striking. Whoopi's question wasn't just a gotcha moment. It was a broader critique that carried meaning far beyond Trump himself. The uncomfortable truths she was prodding at weren't just about a former president stirring the pot. They were about America's willingness to allow certain narratives to persist. Why hadn't the birther claims completely disqualified Trump from polite society, let alone politics? Why do leaders like him keep getting second chances after pushing ideas that cause damage to millions of people? And yet, this wasn't even the full story. As much as Whoopi shook Trump with her question, this was just the beginning of a series of moments where cracks in his narrative started showing. Because as it turns out, the birther controversy isn't the only thing he's been rewriting. Moments like this set the stage for bigger battles to come, and the fallout from these kinds of public takedowns shows just how fragile a carefully crafted image can be. Donald Trump loves rewriting history, even when there's footage to prove he's wrong. Case in point, his infamous 2011 appearance on The View. In typical Trump style, he's gone on to claim that the hosts treated him like royalty. According to him, they practically rolled out the red carpet, showering him with warmth and admiration. But here's the kicker, Whoopi Goldberg wasn't about to let that slide. During a recent episode, she hit the brakes on this revisionist narrative by doing what she does best, throwing facts right back at him. Whoopi didn't even have to work hard to dismantle Trump's fairy tale version of events. She simply pulled up the receipts, actual footage from the 2011 episode, and let the tapes do the talking. On screen, a not-so-warm atmosphere that didn't look anything like the royal treatment Trump described. Sure, the hosts of The View were polite to him. They exchanged pleasantries, kept things civil on air, and didn't hurl insults. But Whoopi made it crystal clear that politeness is not the same as approval. She pointed at the differences for everyone watching, driving home one undeniable truth. Being professional doesn't mean they were his biggest fans.
This just adds to the controversy around Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. So as you said, according to two sources,
there's a lot of fake news coming up, so we're going to clear some of it up as it happens. He was actually
details about an imminent attack on Houthis in Yemen in a Signal chat group.
In the months since Trump took office, again, there have been few people as unapologetic and frankly spot on as the late night show host.
I've not been a fan of this man's. I don't like how he talks to us. I don't like how he talks to the nation.
I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh my.
And then came the classic quips. Because what's The View without a little sharp humor? Joy Behar had no patience for Trump's treated like royalty line, laughing it off with an observation that landed like a dart. Trump, she said, has a habit of turning reality into fantasy. Her words were almost generous, considering the way he twists facts faster than anyone can keep track. But it wasn't just a direct jab, it highlighted a pattern. pattern. This wasn't some one-off exaggeration, it was yet another example of Trump tweaking the narrative to suit his image, all while ignoring the inconvenient parts. Ana Navarro didn't hold back either, pointing out that the whole thing fed into Trump's endless victim complex. She explained how he takes even polite critique and spins it into an attack. According to her, it's no surprise Trump would use this lighthearted appearance from 2011 as a way to paint himself as a misunderstood figure, or worse, a survivor of some grand grudge. And whether you roll your eyes at this, or try to figure out how he keeps this narrative up, it always comes back to the same question. How does he turn even basic interactions into a story of him versus the world? For someone like Trump, whose image depends almost entirely on controlling the conversation, this fact check on live TV hit where it hurts. The psychological blow wasn't just about being called out, it was about being publicly exposed as manufacturing a distortion of reality. You could almost feel the secondhand embarrassment float through the audience as Whoopi and the crew broke down his claims bit by bit. Trump thrives on confidence, on being able to bulldoze his way through criticism, but tearing away the facade often leaves little room for him to maneuver. The brilliance of the hosts wasn't just in what they said, it was how they said it. None of them came across as shrill or over the top, which is exactly what Trump usually thrives on when facing criticism. If anything, it was their calmness that cut the deepest. When Whoopi calmly pointed out how footage of his claims didn't line up with reality, there wasn't space for Trump to deflect with name-calling or loud interruptions. Add in Joy's biting humor and Anna's psychological breakdown of his behavior, and it was a team takedown of his narrative from all sides. It's worth noting the power of making this kind of call out happen live on air. In the digital age, anyone can yell about lies and half-truths on Twitter, but there's something uniquely impactful about laying someone's falsehood bare for millions to see on television. Trump's spin about The View wasn't just about one interaction, it was part of a broader strategy. His whole shtick is convincing people that criticism equals unfairness, that people who challenge him are out to get him, and that he's the only truth teller left. But when Whoopi fact-checked him in real time, that narrative began to crack.
Leaking is not okay. I don't have time for leakers.
You don't have time for leakers. You are the leaker. You're the one who leaked this.
I respect Barbara. You know, she said be polite to guests no matter what. Yes. And for the most part,
Now this, of course, comes after previous controversies of Hegseth sharing deep.
Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. They all loved you.
Oh, that's a terrible
that is
thing
just
to say.
Whoopi, I'm telling you.
He was 3 pounds.
Whoopi, I love you. I'm telling you.
Even for someone with as devoted a fan base as Trump, the cracks add up over time. While a single clip or takedown might not topple his entire house of cards, moments like these create ripple effects. They plant seeds of doubt. Maybe it's someone in his base wondering, wait, if he was wrong about being treated like royalty, what else is he wrong about? Maybe it's a casual viewer realizing how often fact has to race to keep up with his twisting of the story. Regardless, the power of exposing falsehoods like this builds pressure, little by little, piece by piece. Looking back at his 2011 appearance, Trump likely hoped it would remain a footnote in his long list of public stints. But now that his version of events has been so publicly dismantled, it becomes much more than that. Whoopi and her co-hosts didn't just fact-check him, they stripped away one of his signatures, a heavily scripted alternate reality. It's this public peeling back of the curtain that could rattle Trump most, because it's not just about The View, it's about the growing realization that even allies, even fans, might see through his carefully constructed image. And that's where it gets interesting. As Trump scrambles to reinforce his claims, not everyone around him is sticking to the usual talking points. People like Pete Hegseth, one of his most loyal surrogates, have started showing signs of cracks in their devotion. When those within his own orbit raise doubts, or can't keep up with the roller coaster of spin, it becomes harder for Trump to strong-arm his way through these moments. So if this apparent royalty treatment can so easily be debunked, what happens when bigger allies start pulling away? Let's just say Trump's got reasons to worry. Pete Hegseth has always been one of Trump's most loyal defenders, which makes his current standing with the former president all the more surprising. From the gleaming studios of Fox News to cozy Mar-a-Lago photo ops, Hegseth built his image as one of Trump's loudest champions. But apparently, even unwavering loyalty doesn't make you safe from a Trump tantrum. These days, Pete seems to be skating on some very thin ice, and if the reports are true, it's not looking good. One source of drama? Tanks. Yes, tanks. During a discussion about about a military parade, Trump reportedly blew up in one of his classic fits of rage when he learned there were only 3 tanks scheduled for the event. 3 wasn't enough for Trump's grand vision, and it sent him spiraling into one of those "I'm in charge" meltdowns he's become famous for. Hegseth, who had been involved in the planning process, found himself caught in the line of fire. And let's be honest, there's nothing scarier than Trump going full meltdown mode over something as random as tank count. Was it technically Pete's fault? Maybe not directly, but since when has Trump needed details to point fingers when things don't go his way? Then came the international debacle that managed to make things even messier. Hegseth, in his ex-Fox News military guy role, ended up tangled in Trump's fiery reaction to an Iran attack. Here's the issue. Congress is supposed to be notified when any military action like that happens, you know, due to a little thing called the War Powers Act. But apparently the notification didn't go out until after US planes had already evacuated, raising eyebrows and setting off alarms about whether protocol had been violated. For Trump, this was catastrophic, not because of the law or ethics, but because it made him look bad. And who better to nitpick than Hegseth? Every president needs a scapegoat, and Pete had somehow wandered straight into the role. But the real question hanging over all of this is why someone like Hegseth might actually be drifting from Trump. Could it be self-preservation? Honestly, that wouldn't be shocking. Watching Trump get worked up about something as petty as the number of tanks might have Pete rethinking the alliance.
You tell people to stay fraught and like this.
And we all get together on
Well,
those
when we
issues.
find the stuff that we agree on, that's what we do.
So here's the actual appearance.
Well, right. So that
And
means
I'm saying
that
to
means that they
people-
can't be relaxing and enjoying
No,
Christmas when
it doesn't mean. I think that's the biggest pile of dog mess I've heard in ages.
As much as Hegseth has ridden the MAGA train, he's probably smart enough to know when to hop off if the rails are starting to look shaky. Then again, maybe it's more personal. Was it disillusionment with Trump's demands, his rage, or his inability to stick to basics like communicating with Congress? Everyone has a breaking point. A third possibility, and this one's kind of entertaining, is that Pete isn't exactly ditching Trump, but hedging his bets. In other words, maybe he's not abandoning loyalty so much as tiptoeing toward independence. After all, a career rooted entirely in one outspoken figure whose public image has more cracks than a busted iPhone screen isn't the smartest long-term plan. Hegseth would never outright admit he's pulling away, but there's something strategic about staying just far enough out of the blast zone that direct fallout doesn't hit him. With Trump unpredictably throwing tantrums, it's not hard to imagine Pete going, yeah, maybe I should have a plan B. So what does it mean when Trump starts losing even his closest allies, or at least begins second-guessing their loyalty? If we're being honest, it speaks volumes about the state of his inner circle. Trump operates best when the people around him work as human microphones, amplifying whatever point he's shouting that week. The whole Hegseth situation highlights how fragile that system is. One disagreement, one PR stumble, or one perceived slight, and Trump's ready to hit the eject button. For Hegseth, the tanks and the Iran protocol might have been simple logistical issues, but in Trump's world, they become reasons to question loyalty. Step back for a second though, and think about what this says about Trump's broader strategy, or lack of one. Having yes men like Hegseth so deeply involved in his orbit gave Trump the illusion of control, but cracks in that setup lead to chaos, something Trump struggles to manage. If a staunch ally like Pete is no longer viewed as trustworthy, who's next? Does the circle tighten, leaving Trump isolated, or does it expand recklessly, inviting in a new wave of sycophants who might not be as competent or careful? Either way, the ripple effect is nothing short of chaotic. And yet, this isn't just about Pete Hegseth or Trump's love of military parades. It ties back to something much bigger, Trump's obsession with controlling narratives, including those around him. Whoopi's question on The View and her relentless ability to fact-check Trump expose just how fragile his truths can be. The same applies here with Hegseth. Whether it's tanks at a parade or an ally mildly stepping out of line, Trump's leadership style thrives on loyalty and spirals when people question his authority. The unraveling of even one streak of control can send shockwaves outward. In a way, Hegseth's awkward position mirrors the bigger shifts happening around Trump's world. Loyalty to him has always come with conditions, but the tighter he tries to hold on to control, the more people slip through his fingers. The lingering question is, how much longer can this system last? If someone as loyal as Pete, someone who's practically synonymous with Trump's brand, is starting to waver, or worse, being thrown under the bus, what does that mean for everyone else tethered to this ship? Maybe it's not just about how many tanks were in the parade. Maybe it's about who's willing to stand next to them when the dust settles. Whoopi Goldberg's question cut through Trump's farce like a hot knife through butter. No one else? Would it be because he's black? She asked. And just like that, her words exposed more than Trump's tired birtherism act. They shoved uncomfortable truths onto center stage. It wasn't just about Trump though, was it? It was about the audience, about America, forced to reflect on why nonsense like this keeps getting a pass. So here's the question we're left with. What does this country even stand for if the lies and silence keep winning? And more importantly, what other truths are waiting to surface? Truths are waiting